everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing this mesh CS-411 underbust corset made by Orchard Corset. So here is the front, side, the back, and the other side. The center front of this corset is about 10.5 inches. The side seam here is about 8 inches, and along the princess seam from the underbust to the top of the lap is about 9 inches in this corset. I measured this corset out of the package even before I tried it on for the first time because I do realize that some mesh corsets can stretch over time, and I wanted to know what the measurements were before it was all stretched out. So when I measured this corset before trying it on, it is a size 22 corset, and indeed it measured 22 inches in the waist. The top edge here measured about 29 inches, so it has a 7-inch rib spring, and the bottom edge measured 31 inches, so it had a 9-inch hip spring. So this corset actually is a few inches curvier in the rib cage area than the original CS-411 corset that I had reviewed sometime last year. So because I have a larger underbust measurement compared to some other women, I actually find this corset to be more comfortable than their original CS-411. And because the mesh has a little bit more give to it than, say, some of their cotton corsets, it does mean that the silhouette is slightly different. Because my flesh actually pushes out against the mesh, it gives the effect of a more rounded rib cage and slightly more rounded hips as well. So for this particular corset, it is pulling in my floating ribs a tiny bit, but not as much as it would in, say, one of their other CS-411 corsets that was made with a more sturdy material. So here is the mesh CS-411 laid flat, and for the materials, obviously it is only a single layer of beige mesh here, and you can see that the beige mesh, it's fairly flexible. You can see that I can actually expand it a little bit. However, it's stabilized by the waist tape, the binding at the top edge, and the binding at the bottom edge there. So you can see that the purpose of the mesh here is just to keep relatively this little window of flesh contained and, you know, just prevent it from oozing out of this little panel of the corset, as opposed to the fabric itself taking all of the tension of a corset like some others do. So here you can see what the new Orchard Corset label looks like, and here's the fabric content. So the mesh and all the trim is 100% cotton, dry clean only, and you can see the size 22 and contact on the back. So for the pattern of this corset, if you were just to count in between the boning channels, and you would probably count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. However, Sherry from Orchard Corset says that this is made from the same pattern as their original CS-411 corset, which is actually a 4-panel pattern. So if I were to guess where the actual panels are, I would guess here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so in the middle of panels 2 and 3 here, there is another boning channel. So you might remember with the original CS-411 corset, it's actually double bone on each of the seams. These ones are more equally distributed, so you have 1 bone on the seams and 1 bone in the center of a panel here. So you can see that they put the twill on the outside of the corset as well as the inside, and they sandwich the mesh in between there, so you can't see the bone on the inside or the outside of the corset. So obviously you can see that there is a waist tape on the inside of this corset, 1-inch wide beige satin ribbon here, running from the busk all the way to the grommets in the back here. Here is a close-up of the binding of this corset made from strips of matching beige twill here, and it's machine stitched on the outside and on the inside here. There are no garter tabs in this corset, and you can see that on the outside they stitched in the ditch for that second seam there, so you don't see the seam that secures the underside of the binding. The Modesty panel in this corset is 5.5 inches wide, so about I would say 4 inches of usable space. It is unstiffened, made from a double layer of this beige twill here, and it's secured onto the corset with this row of stitching. So if you hate Modesty panels, you can easily remove it just by taking out that seam right there. And there's no Modesty placket on the front of this corset by the busk. The busk in this corset is about 25 centimeters long, or about 9 3/4 inches. So it's a bit of an unusual length, and it's also a bit wider than the usual busk. This one is about 3/4 of an inch wide. So it is a little bit stiffer than the standard 1/2 inch wide flexible busk, and it has 4 loops and pins with the last 2 a little bit closer together.
So as I had mentioned before, the bones in this corset are a pretty unique feature. Their other CS-411 corsets are still double boned on the seams. It's only the mesh ones here that are single boned, some on the seams here and some in the center of the panels. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 1/4 inch wide spiral steel bones. They all attracted my magnet. And here 6, 7, these are 1/4 inch wide flat steel bones sandwiching the grommets here. So on my corset, there are 14 bones here, 7 per side. This is a size 22 corset. Now this seam here, it looks like there might be space for a 1/4 inch wide bone here, but there actually isn't. This is just fabric that had been folded over. So there is no bone next to the busk here, even though it might look like it in a picture. Now this is just the number of bones in my size 22 corset. Now when I talked to Sherry, she said that there were 16 bones in a size 22 corset, which confused me until I learned only recently, this is a very important distinction. Orchard corset considers the busk to be a pair of bones. So if you are looking at the number of bones in a corset, make sure that you're including the busk in that count. Otherwise, if you get a corset, you may find that you count 2 bones less in your corset than they originally said on their website. Now here's where it gets confusing, because this other CS-411 size 22 mesh corset, this one is in red with black trim. This one has 16 bones, not including the busk. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1/4 inch wide spiral steel bones, and then 7, 8. These two are 1/4 inch wide flat steel bones by the grommets, for a total of 16 bones, not including the busk. If you wanted to include the busk, that's 18 bones per side. And when I look on the Orchard Corset website, it seems that even their product photos, some of the corsets have more or fewer bones than the others. So that's confusing. So unfortunately, I cannot say for certain how many bones the size 22 corset has, nor can I say for certain how many bones any particular size will have, because the number of bones increase with the size, but I am guessing you may get at least 14 bones with the size 22. That's what I'm hoping anyways. This corset has a total of 20 grommets, 10 on each side. They are size 00 with a small to medium flange around them. And you can see that they're all holding in pretty well here. Around this area here, you can see that it's a little bit curved. The bones on this side tend to twist a little bit more than the bones on this side. I'm guessing that the Modesty panel being stitched down here actually somehow helps to stabilize the bones. But I did not tighten these boning channels here because I wanted to see how well the grommets actually held up, even with the bones twisting. And it seems that they are still holding up even after seasoning this pretty well. And here you can see the underside of the grommets, so you can see there is a washer under them. All of them have splits, but they don't seem to catch on the laces here, so I don't have an issue with them. Once again, it doesn't seem to show any sort of damage or fraying of the fabric around here. And the laces here are a beige flat nylon shoelace style laces. They have a tiny bit of a spring to them, but as you use the corset more, the spring tends to stretch out and go away. Very difficult to break, and I don't find that they catch on the grommets, and they hold the bow well, so I have no complaints.
The CS-411 Underbust corset in mesh is available in sizes 18 through 40. That's the closed waist size in inches. And it is available currently in this beige and also full black and red with black trim. And it seems to be currently $78 on the Orchard Corset's website, and this seems to be actually the same price for all sizes at 18 up through 40, which is actually a really good deal for some people looking at the larger sizes, because the larger sizes actually contain more bones than the smaller sizes do. So this concludes my review of Orchard Corset's CS-411 Underbust in mesh here. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. If you did, please remember to click that like button below, and I will see you in a few days for another video. Bye.